What's going on, all you Minties? This is the Uncanny Omar with one of my favorite writers of all time, Peter David. How are you, sir?
I'm cold. How are you?
Cold. I'm okay. I'm just...
Oh, it's chilly in this room, so...
It is. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Right.
So, Peter David, oh my gosh. Captain Marvel, Incredible Hulk, Young Justice, Supergirl, Aquaman, all these comics that I grew up reading, it was you, man.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it amuses me when people say they grew up reading my comics. I mean, I remember the first time when I was sitting there and this guy came up to me and he had hair that was graying and he told me that he read my comic books growing up, and I thought, my God, how freaking old am I?
You're not that old. You still got years of writing. So, just a couple days ago, I broke the news that we were going to get an Incredible Hulk Omnibus Volume 2 with your name on it. That is so awesome. I'm so happy to see your name on an omnibus. That's your work has appeared in books before, in collected editions and in Omni format, but this is the first time it actually has your name on the title.
Yeah, I'm really kind of impressed by that. I mean, I'm not entirely sure it's accurate. I mean, yes, I wrote the vast majority of the stories, but, you know, I had the help of an incredible assortment of talented artists. So it's not like I'm the only person producing those books.
You were the backbone to that book, though, for the longest time.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
And then X Factor. Well, hopefully one day we will have all that collected in omnibus format. Amazing, or the Spider-Man 2099. Your Spider-Man run would be so awesome to have all in one place in one book.
Right.
Now, out of all the books, all the characters you've written, what would you say your favorite ones have been?
I don't have a single favorite. I have individual favorites. I mean, you have to understand that whenever I come up with a comic book, the eventual published version is oftentimes maybe 70 to 80% of what I envisioned it to be. Probably one of the few that is 100% was Future Imperfect, which was a 2-issue story that I did with George Perez. I mean, that was fantastic. I mean, George is an artist, a writer's artist. I also loved writing Fallen Angel for DC Comics.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of that.
And then IDW Comics picked that up. I had a great deal of fun with that. Atlantis Chronicles, which is published by DC, remains a favorite of mine. I have a strong fondness for X Factor, particularly X Factor 87. Which was the psychology issue.
Brilliant issue. Made me, and I'm sure thousands of other kids, a fan of Quicksilver, which was hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many people come up to me and tell me, or write me letters saying that they now totally understand Quicksilver because at some point in their lives they have gotten stuck behind someone who doesn't know how to use an ATM. Interestingly enough, no one has ever come up to me and admitted that they were the person who didn't know how to use an ATM. But, I mean, what breaks me up is that the actor who played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies was at San Diego Comic-Con, and the moderator of a Q&A asked him what his feelings were on Quicksilver. And the kid said, have you ever been stuck behind someone who doesn't know how to use an ATM? Now, thank God I wasn't in the audience, because I would have gone, dude, that's my version of Quicksilver. You know, he wants to know what your interpretation is. But, you know, whatever. It's you know, my work has affected so many people. I mean, when I outed Shatterstar and Richter,
yeah, that was a big thing.
In an issue of X Factor.
Like, as long out, reading New Mutants and reading X-Force, like, it was one of those things that I thought they were trying to do at the time, and it was always like something.
We had always been hinting and doing nudge, nudge, wink, wink for like more than 10 years. And when I decided to bring back Shatterstar, I said, you know what? This is the 21st century. Why are we continuing to be coy about this? So I had them kiss. To me, it was no big deal. I mean, it was panel 5 of a 6-panel page. That's what little import I gave it. But it erupted and it took off. And I mean, I've had young guys come up to me at conventions and tell me that I had literally saved their lives because they were closeted gay guys who didn't know how to tell their loved ones or their friends that they were gay, and they were considering suicide because they just couldn't live with keeping this part of them bottled up. Wow. And when fandom reacted so positively to the revelation of Victor and Shatterstar, it gave them the courage to approach their family and friends and say, I'm gay. And what's interesting is that uniformly they said their family and friends went, yeah, we know. I mean, they had no idea that their family and friends were aware of this and were just waiting for them to say something. So, these guys were really considering suicide rather than telling their loved ones something that their loved ones already knew.
And you had no idea this kind of writing was going to impact anybody's life.
No, I had absolutely no clue at all. I mean, when I came up with that, I'm just going, there's no reason to be screwing around with this. It's, like I said, it's the 21st century. It's not a major revelation as far as I'm concerned.
I think most people that were reading X-Force kind of knew.
X-Factor. X-Force, right. Yes, that's right, X-Force.
And that's the thing about you that I always say on the channel. Yeah, there's only a handful of people that I know that have a huge grasp of all the things that have happened in Marvel and in DC, like understanding these characters and respecting their past history. And you're one of those people. Like, it's amazing the knowledge that you have.
Well, I have a good deal of knowledge, and the great thing is that if there's any gaps in my knowledge, I can always go onto Twitter and Facebook and say, hey, guys, remember when this happened? Can you guys bring me
back in the day?
Back in the day, no. But now, though, it's so easy. If I have any questions.
Right. Before you had to memorize all
these
things.
Not anymore.
Go back to the handbook.
The memory that the fans have is just staggering.
Oh, yeah.
They just remember this stuff in unbelievable detail.
One of my favorite things, I love reading. I wish every collection had an introduction by the person that, I wish you had written an introduction for the Peter David Hulk omnibus, because one of my favorite things I read was the collection of the death of Jean DeWolf, right? When you killed her off, and how much it bothered you when Gwen Stacy died. I love reading that. You found out when Gwen Stacy died, you were so mad because you weren't reading comics at the time. You found out from.
I found out after the fact. And I was absolutely stunned.
Right, and you swore you wouldn't do that. How could you do that to a fan?
Well, in my defense, killing Jean DeWolf was not my idea. Oh. It was Jim Owsley's idea. Jim was the editor of the series. And he said, I want to do a storyline in which we kill Jean DeWolf. Would you like to write it? I went, okay. Because when an editor offers you a gig, you say sure. So I had nothing against Gene at all. I mean, it was the editor's idea. The funny thing was, we got deluged with letters from fans saying, "Oh, how can you kill Jean? She was my favorite character." Yet I took the time before I wrote it to go through all the letters, and this was a goodly number, to go through all the letters that we had received to the Spider-Man books for the previous year, just out of curiosity. And Jean DeWolf had not appeared in the comic book for a year.
Oh, okay.
Do you know how many inquiries we got as to where the heck Jean DeWolf was? None. Zero. Absolutely nobody wrote in to say, hey, what's Jean DeWolf doing? Where's she been? If Mary Jane disappeared without explanation for a year, we would have been deluged with letters. Nobody inquired as to Jean DeWolf's whereabouts until I killed her off, and suddenly she was everyone's favorite character.
Isn't that the way that it works? The same thing happened to Louise Simonson, right, with Doug, when she killed him off. So, yeah. That was one of my favorite backstories too that you wrote in X Factor. Well, I think it was an annual where Doug is. It's this really just little short story where.
Yeah, he's sitting in the grave.
Yeah, you know exactly where I was going.
Yeah,
of course you wrote it, so that's why you would know. And you got a great memory.
That was one of 3 short pieces that I wrote. I think it was called Requiem. Requiem, the first, second, and third.
Yeah, the other one was these wonderful moment of Mystique spreading Destiny's ashes.
And then they blow back in her face.
Because she knew it was going to happen.
Well, yeah, because Destiny said, spread my ashes at exactly this time in exactly this place. Because Destiny knew the wind was going to shift.
Like, when I was getting ready to talk to you, I was like, I'm going to be like the Chris Farley character. When he's like, do you remember the time that you wrote that issue? You're going to be like, yeah, of course I did. I wrote it. That's what I always have this fear.
I don't necessarily remember everything I wrote. I mean, let me put it to you this way. The other day, I received some bonus money from DC Comics. And one of the reasons they said that they were giving bonus money was because I created several characters who had shown up in live action episodes or movies. For example, I created Atlan, who showed up in Aquaman. And they said, and you created the Acolyte. And I'm sitting there going, who the hell is the Acolyte?
Well, now you've got Twitter.
No, I didn't go on Twitter. I went online and I looked it up and discovered that, oh, yeah, I created him back in Young Justice #9. I had no recollection of him at all. But now I got to go watch the Titan series because that's where he showed up.
So, I grew up reading your stuff. And when it gets collected, you know, like I have custom bound my own Young Justice books to make them look like Omnis, and now they're coming out with trade paperbacks. And one of the things that has happened lately, I know a lot of the viewers that watch my channel love collected editions, but it's like they get to volume 3 and then they stop, and it breaks our hearts because I'm like, I want all of Peter David's, not just like Aquaman, Supergirl, and Young Justice. Marvel kind of did the same thing with the complete collection of X Factor when they were doing those books.
Right.
But I think
they went way past volume 3. They did a lot of.
Well, they did the complete series, but then they were doing the fatter trades, and then I think they stopped at 3 or something. But hopefully, with the sales of this book, with the upcoming volume 2, they'll see how much these collected editions mean to people like us that just love reading them because we're older now and it's easier to carry around a big giant book. What are you working on these days?
For comics, I'm working on Symbiote Spider-Man.
Yep.
I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Just signed my copy.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
And I have other projects that I'm not really at liberty to talk about yet. Although, as a matter of fact, this Tuesday I'm going into Marvel and getting together with one of my editors to talk about a new project.
Oh, that's so exciting. I love seeing you come back to these characters that I know. But I was a big fan of Fallen Angel, too.
Oh,
I was upset when DC was like, but you got out of there. Because originally, your idea for Fallen Angel was to tie it into your Supergirl run.
Yeah. When I first launched Fallen Angel, I was deliberately vague about her origins. I was leaving the option open that she was actually really Linda Danvers. When the series left DC and moved over to IDW, there was no longer any reason for me to be coy because she couldn't be Linda Danvers because she was no longer being published by DC. So that's when I put forward the Fallen Angel's full name and her actual backstory.
I got the trades, and then I got the little Omnis that they released, the little small ones.
Yeah.
But the final story wasn't ever collected in those little Omnis. I think I bought it. Actually, I met you at a convention in Atlanta, and I bought the trade paperback because you were like, "You need this," and I'm like, "Done," because I need that to finish out that story. Is there any character that is like you that you've ever written, like more of you into the character than anybody else?
If I'm doing it right, any character that I'm writing has aspects of my personality in it. That's how I'm able to connect to them. It really depends. I mean, for example, when I was writing Young Justice, I found that I was having trouble connecting to the teen boys. Now, granted, I used to be a teen boy, but I really didn't have many friends. So I was really having trouble writing the guys. That's why I introduced all the girls into Young Justice, because I had 3 daughters. I knew and understood teenage girls. So by introducing the females into the group, I was able to view the boys through the eyes of the girls, and then I had no trouble with them. But I really try to invest all the characters with aspects of myself. The Hulk has aspects of me. Fallen Angel has aspects of me. Madrox certainly has aspects of me. You try to pick and choose things that will inform the character and give them weight and humanity and reality.
I always find it amazing how you can be gone from a character and come back to it, and it feels like you were never gone. Like, all these things have happened to a character. Well, for example, like Hulk, right? You recently wrote a Hulk story,
Right.
and then before, I think Planet Hulk came out, you did a story too during that run.
Yeah.
During, I think it was House of M, I think, during that stuff.
Yep.
So it's amazing that you were gone so long, you come back, and you pick it up like nothing, right? It's so great to see you do that.
Well, once I put my mind back into the character's mindset, but that's part of my job. I mean, for example, when Steve Wacker was leaving Marvel Editorial, he wrote a farewell letter, and one of the things he mentioned in it was that they were working on a new Spider-Man 2099 comic, and fandom, for once, spoke with a united voice. Everyone said we would totally buy a Spider-Man 2099 comic book as long as Peter David's writing it, which I wasn't doing at the time. Indeed, my email account lit up with people writing to me going, "Are you doing the Spider-Man 2099?" And I'm going, "No." I said, "I really haven't thought about the character in 2 decades. No, I'm not doing the character." And Marvel, in the meantime, seeing that fandom was united in me, came to me. And they said, "Would you like to write Spider-Man 2099? And I said to the editor, "Okay, sure." And she said, "Good." Now, this was on a Wednesday. She said, "We need a 5-page story by Friday that's going to run in Spider-Man 700, and we need the first issue by the end of next week." And I said, "When is the book coming out?" And she said, "July." And I said, "It's May." And she said, "Yes, you're really behind."
Anybody can do it.
Yeah. But I just love the notion that she told me that I was behind on a comic book that I had just been assigned 30 seconds earlier.
That had to feel like coming back home, though, because you created that character, and I'm sure you were under a lot of because back then in Marvel, you were writing a few books. It wasn't just one book. You were doing multiple books.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sure there were a lot of deadlines, a lot of, editors like, "Hey, Peter, we need to get this done."
I honestly don't have problems with deadlines. I mean, editors tell me they need something, and I usually get it to them as quickly as humanly possible. I mean, editors will say, "Well, I need this in a week," and I have it to them in a day. I'm just very quick. I mean, I remember Dan Slott was once telling me that I should write outlines for comics. I said, "I should write outlines?" And he says, "Yes, because it will really speed the process of writing the script." He says, "If you work off a thorough outline, you can write a script in like 8 hours." And I said, "Dan, right now it takes me 3 to 4 hours to write a script without a deadline, without an outline." And Dan said, 3 to 4 hours? I said, "Yeah." He says, "Okay, you don't need an outline. Forget it."
Honestly, Dan Slott, it's funny that you mentioned him, because actually his writing style kind of reminds me a lot of the way that you wrote some of the characters, right? And then particularly he went on to do She-Hulk.
Yeah.
But that's... So, speaking of Spider-Man 2099, did you know that character was going to make a little cameo in the Spider-Verse movie that blew up?
No, I did not. Indeed, Dan was at the Marvel screening for that, as was I. And he was sitting next to a reporter. And when the lights came up, the reporter said, "Who was it who screamed yes when the sign that said, 'Meanwhile in Nueva York' came up?" And Dan said, "Yeah, that would be Peter David." Which was true. I mean, I was sitting in the back of the theater, and when it said "Meanwhile in Nueva York," I shouted yes at the top of my lungs. Not to be loud, but it was just my genuine reaction. Because when it said Nueva York, I'm going, my God, it's my guy. It has to be.
Right.
It has to be. They're not going to cut to Nueva York and give us Doom 2099. Not in the Spider-Verse film.
That was one of my favorite. I also said yes, but it's not like a proud father moment for me. But that definitely was for you.
Yeah,
like,
I was thrilled.
That's awesome. And now,
And Oscar Isaac voiced him. I mean, that's pretty cool.
Right. It's a great dude. He's been in
Dameron,
He's been in everything, right?
Really.
Like,
I hope he comes to a convention sometime so I can introduce myself and tell him that I loved what.
voiced my guy, too.
Yeah, that I loved what he did with Spider-Man 2099.
Now, after Hulk gets done in omnibus format, what does Peter David want to see in an omnibus format? Either DC or Marvel. What would you like to see collected in one of those big books?
I'd like to. I actually wouldn't mind seeing Spider-Man 2099. I think that would be fun because we've got several different series. We've got the original series, and then we've got the relaunch. So I think that would be interesting to see that character over a period of 2 decades.
Well, it's also interesting that he's also recently made a comeback too, because of the whole 2099.
I bought those. I haven't read those yet, so I don't have any idea if they're any good or not.
Oh, okay. You bought them. It sounds so weird buying your character, right?
Yeah.
Like with a character that belongs to Marvel, but you created though.
Yep.
That's a good answer because that's in my top. That's actually my top 20 most wanted Marvel Omnis, and we can make it happen. Fans can make this happen.
Hey, I'm thrilled that they sent me a copy of the Hulk Omnibus.
I'm glad that you got one. I got one for review.
It's $100, so yeah, I'm thrilled.
The prices for these books are no jokes. But you got to think though, we were kids buying these books. Now we got jobs, and we want to relive our childhood through these big giant books. And what better way to do it? I think they look wonderful on a bookshelf.
Right.
So hopefully we will see a lot more with your name on that spine.
I'm fine
That's
with
what
that
I want to
idea.
see. Well, thank you so much for joining me, sir. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Same here.
And you have a great day.
Thanks, you too.
This episode is sponsored by CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for brand new graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off the cover price. Cheap Graphic Novels prides itself on packaging your books so they arrive safely and in excellent condition, as well as prompt and helpful service. And check out their bargain bin for even greater deals up to 90% off cover price. And for you Minties, Cheap Graphic Novels is running a special promotion. If you're a first-time customer, let them know you were referred by Near Mint Condition at the checkout, and you'll receive a credit for free shipping on your next order. Now, this is only for U.S. customers. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discounts, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.